And so I think the next, say, 6 months, next 12 months are really going to highly depend on liquidity dynamics, which again will come down to a handful of people. But if you ask me what I think Bitcoin looks like in 2 or 3 years, and probably gold as well, I think that's a clear picture. And in that time frame, I'm certainly a bull. I think focusing on things that have long-term compounding potential are attractive. And actually, they're not all equity based. I mean, I still think Bitcoin, even though it's not an equity, I think it has certain growth stock characteristics in the sense that you're buying into the idea that this protocol is going to be more important 5 or 10 years from now
Mhm.
than it is now, and that therefore you can have your slot on the network. So I kind of also consider that one of my growth holdings.
Lyn Alden is a financial analyst and commentator who provides insightful analysis on a wide range of investment regarding Bitcoin. In this video, Alden mentions a few of Bitcoin's fundamental properties that make the crypto king an attractive storehold of wealth. As Alden says, and so I think as long as you have that dynamic, that is a challenging place for Bitcoin and similar assets. That doesn't mean you have to have new lows. It's quite possible that we've seen the lows. But I also don't think it means that you're going to get another straight-up bull market anytime soon, until you have a shift either in policy or perception of that policy. Bitcoin receives to $27,000 as Fed's Mester favors unabated tightening. Alden has acknowledged the potential of Bitcoin as a store of value and a hedge against inflation. She has highlighted Bitcoin's decentralized nature, limited supply, and increasing institutional adoption as factors that contribute to its value proposition. Alden has also emphasized the importance of understanding the risks associated with Bitcoin, such as its volatility and regulatory uncertainties. The Fed's unrelenting tightening has roiled risk assets, including cryptocurrencies. BlackRock CEO's dollar warning, will it be bullish for Bitcoin? Financial market participants began looking at Bitcoin as a safer alternate with high returns in turbulent times amid de-dollarization debate. The concern, according to Alden, is that Bitcoin block space might not be attractive enough long-term for people to pay a significant amount on a per-transaction basis in order to settle value there or to do other things, in which case the network becomes open to lower-cost attacks. Bitcoin price could reach $45,000 due to rising gold price, says JP Morgan. In turn, this implies a $45,000 price for Bitcoin under the assumption that Bitcoin equalizes gold and private investors' portfolios in risk capital or volume-adjusted terms. Therefore, proceeding further in this video, make sure to hit the subscribe button below for more recent updates about crypto market.
So I like both gold and Bitcoin as part of a diversified portfolio. Kind of the framing that I use for a diversified portfolio at the current time is a three-pillar portfolio. So one pillar is cash equivalents of various types. That can include things like T-bills, money markets. Um, Another pillar is long-term compounding equities. So equities you're happy to hold for 5+ years. They could be dividend payers. They could be kind of profitable long-term growth stocks at reasonable valuations. That's kind of historically a very attractive place for long-term compounding. And then the third pillar would be basically commodity exposures or hard monies, which is more of an inflation hedge. So that can include things like energy companies, copper miners, direct
Mhm.
commodity exposure, like holding a uranium trust or something like that. But then also would include assets like Bitcoin and gold that are protections against ongoing currency debasement, potentially superior monetary systems that are gaining adoption over time. And so when we look at, let's say, like $45,000 price targets, if you look at Bitcoin's price action historically, it's very correlated with liquidity. And there's
Mhm.
various ways to measure liquidity, but essentially, for example, if you look at global broad money supply and then denominate it in dollars, and you look at that in year-over-year terms, that's very correlated with Bitcoin. So when that's going up, usually Bitcoin is having one of its big bull markets. And obviously, there's two big drivers of global dollar-denominated M2 broad money, which is either you get a big expansion of money supply itself, or you get a weaker dollar because that's the unit of account that you're measuring all these in. So if you get a stronger dollar and you get ongoing quantitative tightening, that's generally rough for Bitcoin. And if you look
Yeah.
at this big kind of mini bull run we've had, where Bitcoin came off its lows, nearly
Mhm.
doubled, um, the dollar peaked back in the autumn, the dollar index. And because we've had the Treasury general account pouring money back into the system and offsetting the Fed, that coincided with somewhat of a bear market, or at least a cyclical bear market in the dollar, which has given a bid to assets like, Bitcoin, gold, things like that. So I think in that regard, Bitcoin has less geopolitical risk. If anything, it's kind of insurance against certain geopolitical risks. So one of the major selling points of Bitcoin is the idea that you can self-custody money and then you can bring it, anywhere in the world with an internet connection,
Hmm.
which, as an American doesn't seem super important on its surface. But if you live in Lebanon, if you live in Argentina, if you live in China, if you live in India, if you all these different Nigeria,
Yep.
the billions of people in the world that are in either smaller countries, more inflationary countries, more authoritarian countries, any just time they might want to, for whatever reason, and bring their assets around, is Bitcoin is the least friction asset to be able to bring with you. Other ones can get blocked by all sorts of capital controls and frictions and confiscations and things like that. So I think that's actually a point in its favor. Number two is that it doesn't have profits. It's a network, right? So there's tail risks on the network, like the United States going hard on it. There are these certain challenges that it can face, and it probably will face to some degree in the years ahead. Um, but for example, if you were to have some of these tail risks, like China and the United States have their relationships break down, these companies with very big installed asset bases in China,
Hmm.
like Apple or Tesla,
Right.
things like that, I'd be more worried about those assets because they're at a pretty high valuation. They have this tail risk that could be their operations, like, just absolutely massive damage. Whereas the Bitcoin network is more nimble, more decentralized, not reliant on profits. So if you do get that kind of war or that kind of breakdown scenario.
Ordinals and politicians bring the heat to marquee Bitcoin conference. It delved into the implications of ordinals, which have cut up the Bitcoin group into smaller factions. Those who embrace BRC20 see ordinals prolonged use circumstances for Bitcoin. However, others see them as an assault on the world's largest cryptocurrency as a result of community congestion and price spikes they carry with them. As per Alden, the longer that Bitcoin keeps working and keeps doing what it does, and it keeps being functional and keeps being understood by more and more people, I expect that adoption to increase. With only 5% of the world's population using Bitcoin occasionally and a base layer transaction costing the equivalent of $30 in the future, Alden says you're talking billions and billions of dollars of annual fees for miners.
Putting arbitrary data in the Bitcoin blockchain has been there since the beginning.
Yep.
It's had various forms along the way. It's had periods of being a fad and then going away and then coming back in a different form. So I do think that, kind of another way of framing Bitcoin is that it's the world's most decentralized and immutable database. Um, it's basically a true time chain. Unlike a proof of stake network, it's basically the combination of small nodes and proof of work makes it this kind of like digital time capsule that's pretty interesting. And kind of hard to forge. It's resilient against even like network-wide disruptions, things like that. And so I think it does make sense that there's a variety of things you might want to put in there. I mean, someone put a picture of, that famous picture of the guy standing in front of the tank in China, right? So
Oh,
maybe
okay.
there's
Yeah.
moments of history you want to record. Maybe there's key books you want to record. You want to put 1984 in there. You want to put
Hmm.
the U.S. Constitution in there. You want to put, kind of documents that might be relevant in the future that you want to make sure that maybe in the future it's hard to get your hands on untampered versions, right? And you say, well,
Yeah.
you can't prove that it's true, but you can prove that it's unchanged
Yeah.
if you stick it in there and years go by. And so you can even put in other things like, just applications, code. If you want to preserve a certain type of code, if you want to prove, Michael Saylor used the idea, if you want to use Nostr, but a million AI spin up their own keys, you could, put your public key into the Bitcoin blockchain, say this is
Yep.
you, and not a million of them can do that, or at least not in a rapid period of time. There's a cost, there's a micro cost or a moderate cost associated with doing that. And so I do think that Bitcoin blockchain is useful in that sense for non-transaction data. As far as ordinal theory specifically, I mean that's somewhat separate than just putting inscriptions. That's a claim on ownership. It's basically a way of ordering satoshis, ordering the smallest component of the network. Um, I'm not a huge fan of this kind of speculative fervor we've seen. I think that this is somewhat spammy, but I think I think it's burning itself out already. Maybe we'll have more waves of it in the future. But I think that there is a human urge to collect. That includes digital collectibles. And if there is a wide enough consensus on what constitutes ownership, then that can work for periods of time. I personally find that angle less interesting, whereas I do view the Bitcoin network as a verification medium to be of usefulness. So
Hmm.
whether it's decentralized identity like DIDs, or whether it's kind of the Sailor example of using it to put a key document or a key burning one side of your key pair into it to prove that there's a cost associated with it. I think that is worth exploring, and it's not the first time it's been explored.
JP Morgan considers the $45,000 Bitcoin price as an upper limit, indicating limited potential for the asset beyond the increase driven by the doubling of mining or production costs. The upcoming Bitcoin halving in April or May 2024 would mechanically double Bitcoin's production cost to around $40,000, according to JP Morgan. ChatGPT's Bitcoin price prediction is $35,000. Per ChatGPT, Bitcoin could be trading around the $35,000 level by the end of the year, 29% higher than the current price. Hence, questions remain about the ongoing economic uncertainty and whether it will benefit Bitcoin price in the months ahead, amid concerns of a collapse in the commercial real estate market. That's all about today's analysis. Do you agree with Lyn Alden's perspective about Bitcoin performance in the next 6 to 12 months? Will Bitcoin hit its all-time high? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. If you found this information helpful, then like this video and subscribe to our channel. We will bring you more updates in the future.